I never saw this many experienced Republicans talking in such depressed terms because they know how difficult it is to work in that part of the world, which is very, very complicated. Well, given what he did in Iran, it's going to be very, very difficult to win back many supporters. One of the key points of Trump was that the United States will not get involved in all these foreign problems like Iraq or Vietnam. And a lot of people voted for him because Trump will keep the United States away from these silly problems around the world. But now he betrayed all of them by starting a war in Iran. Oil prices skyrocketed, inflation is a lot worse. Those are exactly the argument that Trump used against Biden and Harris. And so I don't know how much time is left for Trump to turn the situation around, because this war with Iran is going to be a very, very difficult one to resolve. Trump talks about deals 2 weeks away, deals 2 weeks away. He started saying that 2 months ago, almost 3 months ago. Gosh, how many 2 to 3 weeks have gone through already, and still nothing on the table. I was in Washington in April, talking to quite a few people in the former State Department officials and others, who some of them were actually in the Trump administration before. And they were all saying, this is going to end badly. I never saw this many experienced Republicans talking in such depressed terms because they know how difficult it is to work in that part of the world, which is very, very complicated. Trump thought that just bombing a few military sites, Iranians will someone say, oh, sorry, we're not going to do this. It wasn't that simple at all. And I think he made it even more difficult himself. Because when the war started on February 28th, US and Iran were still negotiating. When you are still negotiating on one side and you send the fighter planes and bombers to bomb the country, how would the people on the other side think? When Japanese did that at Pearl Harbor, Americans were against the war at that time. But when the attack was made, Americans came up suddenly united. The slogan was, remember Pearl Harbor. United States did the same thing to Iran. If you were in Iran, would you like to negotiate with this guy who bombed you while you're in the middle of negotiation? So that's already a huge loss of credibility for the US government. That's bad enough. But the same Donald Trump was the person which pulled the United States from the original agreement to stop nuclear weapon development in Iran, 2015. That was under President Obama. And President Obama took 20 months to put that agreement together. Obama was able to put in all the countries of the Security Council of the United Nations. So China was on board, Russia was on board, the entire United Nations was on board. So in that environment, Iran was really isolated. The whole world was with Obama. The United Nations, United States will remove the sanctions against Iran. If Iran does this, we will remove that sanction. If Iran gets to this one, we will remove this part. So it was all tied to very complicated steps of denuclearization of Iran. And when it was put on the Iranians, so the negotiators agreed, right? So then Iranians had to vote on this thing, whether to accept or not. And at that time, the supreme religious leader who just got killed in an attack said, I will not make the decision. Parliament should make the decision to accept this or not. So there was a big debate in the Iranian parliament. Some hardliners, like the Revolutionary Guards, said, hell with this agreement. This is infringement on our national sovereignty in so many ways. We cannot accept something like this. We are still an independent, sovereign country. But there were moderates in the Iranian parliament who said, no, we should accept it, and we should end the sanctions, and then we should move forward. So there are two groups, right? And after lots of debate, the moderates actually won the debate. So on the actual voting, moderates, I believe, got 161 votes, and the Revolutionary Guards, the hardliners, got like 59 votes, 161 to 59. So Iranian parliament agreed, so the whole process began. Then 2 years later, so 2018, Donald Trump became the president of the United States. And one country that was opposed to this agreement was Israel, Mr. Netanyahu. And he basically managed to convince Trump that this agreement should be destroyed. And Trump somehow can never say no to Netanyahu. If you look at his behavior, whether in the first term or the second term, he's always with Israel. And so 2018, he declared that the United States would not only pull out of this agreement that Obama put together, but US will reimpose all the sanctions on Iran, and anyone who is trading with Iran will face the US sanctions, whether you're Japanese or German or whoever. So the situation was made far worse. Now, if you are Iranian, if you're one of those 161 who voted for this agreement, how would you feel? Betrayed, exactly. They worked so hard to move the country away from the crazy thing that it was doing in the past. Now, suddenly, Trump listens to Israel and destroys the whole thing. So my guess is that the moderates today are a much smaller group in Iran, right? You would expect the hardliners who opposed the agreement to begin with are probably saying, I told you so. Americans cannot be trusted. They must be much stronger. How do you get an agreement this time when Americans appear untrustworthy? They attack you during the middle of negotiations, and the negotiations they actually agreed were destroyed by the same man, Donald Trump. And Netanyahu is saying openly, if the new agreement is worse than the Obama's agreement, Israel will continue to attack Iran. So war will not be over, right? So Trump is kind of stuck in the middle. We have a super hardliner in Israel and mostly hardliners in Iran, and he's in the middle. So when he said 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have an agreement, I must say that those made no sense to me at all. Maybe we can have a temporary agreement to let the ships go through the Strait of Hormuz, but to have a permanent, more long-lasting agreement, it might take another 20 months or even more, longer, right? Because both sides are hardliners now. We might be stuck with this problem for a while. Trump can play with words and try to make it look like a victory, right? So we may have a temporary moments where things look good, but to have a more long-lasting solution in Iran, we might need a miracle for that.